Part 5. The rapidly falling snow covered Fute's grave and soaked the ground. It was as if a piece of my heart was torn away every time I threw soil into the grave with a shovel. Trying not to think about that moment, I opened the wooden drawer next to my desk, pulled a cigarette from the silver tray to my lips and smoked it with great pleasure, but something still seemed missing. The door of my room was knocked by a strong hand, and after wiping the tears from my eyes with the handkerchief I took out of the pocket of my broadcloth uniform, I shouted, "You can enter." Sesme appeared behind the door with a stern and serious look. "Rauf Pasha, I am disturbing you, but there is an important issue." "What is the important issue?" I said, my voice shaking and my eyes filling with tears. The eyebrows over his peacock eyes were stretched like a bow. "It would be better if we go to the meeting room, Rauf Pasha, because radios, telegraphs, and communication lines are in the hands of the occupying forces. It may be difficult to understand from here." As I pressed the cigarette that had shrunk from my lips into the ashtray, the bitter smell wafted into my nose. As I stood up from the chair I was sitting on, Sesme opened the door wide open and the dim light from the corridor filled my room. When I left the room, straightening the collar of my uniform, Sesme was walking next to me. "We were sad to bury our friend, but we had nothing to do. The world would not stop and let us go just because we were sad." As I approached the open door of the meeting room, my heartbeat was accelerating and the sweat was flowing down my neck and into me. When I entered the meeting room, all my friends were gathered around the radio on the table. "Good luck, guys." Each of them looked into my eyes and repeated loudly, "Thank you, Pasha." Sesme and I sat down on our chairs. "What is the important issue?" Seysevar continued her speech by interlocking her fingers on the table. "Istanbul government." She suddenly stopped talking while tightening her lips in anger. "What happened to the Istanbul government?" "The Sultan is gone, my Pasha," Tulit completed him. Enver rubbed his red eyes and frowned. "In short, Rauf Pasha ran away. The Sultan ran away," he muttered angrily. My palms were sweaty as my eyes stared out the window with the shutters open. "How could this be? Where did he go? Is there any information about him?" Tulit scratched his head and smiled bitterly. "On a British ship to England." I couldn't stop my hand from shaking as my heart beat faster. "So what? Now the Sultan has left the government?" While smiling with his lips under his mustache, Enver repeated, "Yes, Rauf Pasha, he could not stand the British mandate and pressure and ran away." "Do we have any other information?" Sesme looked around with pitiful eyes and sighed in distress as she crossed her arms on the table. "More than any other information, we have this, Pasha. From now on, the British, Greeks, French, and Italians, that is, the occupying forces, will be in a more dominant position." As he spoke, his voice was rising and his leg was shaking. "Are the radio, telegraph, and telephone lines still down?" "It would be better if these were the only ones, Rauf Pasha. All transportation routes were left in the hands of the Allied powers." I dreamed of Erva while gritting my teeth, and my heart ached when I realized that I had fallen into great despair again. I couldn't sit in my chair any longer, so I stood up and put the revolver on my waist on the Turkish flag in the middle of the table. I continued my words by slamming my fist on the table. "The moment an enemy confronts us, his right is death. The enemy is strong in Kanakhale and the Straits. There is nothing to lose from now on. On the contrary, our Unionist hearts will win. The little students will take wooden-handled rifles and fight for the homeland in foreign hands, far from their homes and mothers. As long as this life is in this body, no one will be able to defeat this country. No one will molest the honor of my country. If necessary, we will remain heroes without graves, and we will sacrifice our lives and blood for this country without blinking an eye." When I finished speaking, my loud voice echoed through the walls and my throat felt dry and sore. All my friends were trying to look at the gun and flag in front of them with strong eyes, without speaking. Tulit straightened the collar of his broadcloth uniform, stood up, and looked at us all one by one. He placed his veined, strong hands on the gun and the flag and shouted, "My dear, may my blood be sacrificed for this country." Then Sesme, Enver, and Seysevar also stood up. "May our lives and blood be sacrificed for this country." After the silence, only the whisper of the rickety gas lamp on the wall and our breathing could be heard. As I retreated helplessly, I watched the white streets of Aksahir from the headquarters window with its shutters open. While the minaret of Hassan Pasha Amaret Mosque was rising as if piercing the sky, the huge dome of Aplixi Mosque was shining like a silver moon, melting the snow on it. Friends, it's okay, you can leave. The Istanbul government is left unattended, but Turkey and the beloved Turkish nation are never helpless and alone. While they all proudly approved what I said and nodded their heads, they left the meeting room with lazy steps. Just when I thought I was alone in the room, a voice, not very strong, whispered, "Pasha." Without taking my glazed eyes away from the wooden-framed window, I asked, "Sir, Saysavar, any news?" I repeated the question to which I knew the answer, slowly turning to Saysavar. "What news?" "I'm asking for Ms. Erva. Is there still any news? Do you know where it is?" I put my hands on my waist and brought a wry smile to my lips. "No, there is still no news, Saysavar. I just know this. I'm still madly in love with him." As his cheeks flushed, he stared sheepishly at the rotting wooden floor. "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, Ralph Pasha." I added salt to your wound by asking. As I put my hand on his shoulder, I looked into his eyes. "No, do not think like that. You didn't think of it. It was always on my mind anyway." His lips turned into a thin line as his head rose upright. When he walked out of the room slowly, clicking his leather boots together, I was left alone again. When my surroundings fell into deep silence, I realized the bleeding wound of my soul. My love had taken me to a gallows and was tightening the thick rope around my throat day by day. While my eyes were about to fill with tears again, I quickly took out my pocket and wiped my tears with my square-embroidered handkerchief and left the meeting room. Gloomy and gray clouds gathered in curtains over Aksahir and were approaching the earth as if they wanted to shout out a pain or a mistake. As I walked up the creaking wooden steps, leaving all despair aside, I heard a voice behind me. "Paham. Ralph Pasha, can you look at it for a second?" Trying to erase the calm expression on my face with a fake smile, I slowly turned around on the steps. Of course. A young private turned his eyes away from the phone he was talking about before and said excitedly, "Mr. Namek just called. The students are now traveling to Kanakhale and they all want to say goodbye to you. They will be here soon. I hope I did not put them at risk, Pasha." I continued my words while adjusting my wire-rimmed glasses that made my thoughtful eyes look larger. "I want to see them. That's good. Take them all to the meeting room when they arrive." He shook his head gently as he adjusted his cap on his head. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The brave students of Aksahir Sultanasai were lined up side by side at the long wooden table in the hall. While looking into each of their eyes, they responded to me with a smile. They were not students anymore, but Mimitsiks with fire in their hearts. As I walked among the chairs, I wanted to stay close to the young people. You all received the consent of your family, your environment, and most importantly, your own hearts, right? Tariq, who was chosen as the spokesperson of the group, stood up with his hands folded in front of him. "We got it, Ralph Pasha. We are now Mimitsik. Risking everything, we are going to our hometown Aksahir, perhaps saying our last farewell." As I stood upright, my face turned pale and my voice cracked. "It's like a mother's home, not a lover's lap, so you should know that." Fizi stood up normally from the chair under him and spoke quickly. "We know, Ralph Pa." Tariq hit Fizi with his elbow and made him sit down, while my lip under my curled mustache curled up with joy. I ignored the fight between the two by folding my arms around my body, and at that moment they both settled back into their old places. When I said, "You won't have such smiling-faced teachers there," I pointed to Mr. Namek. "You will have more serious and loud commanders there. You will no longer have a pen in your hand, but a rifle. You are doing such a good job that you are that much closer to God now." I continued walking for a while without speaking. As Tariq stood up from his chair, he looked away from me with his misty eyes and said, "Maybe we can drink the sherbet of martyrdom." I couldn't speak while looking into Tariq's eyes. I was sweating from nervousness as I stroked my mustache with my hand. "Don't think like that, kids. It's too early to think about it." While Mr. Namek was speaking, everyone bowed their heads and looked ahead with absent-minded eyes. I sighed in annoyance. All I could say was, "Your Namek teacher is right. Kids, get such things out of your mind." At that moment, the door of the meeting room opened with great care, and the head of the private on duty reached inside. "Pasha, I am disturbing you, but someone has come for the students." While my eyebrows were furrowed, I turned my curious eyes to the private. "Who's that?" He scratched his chin with his hand and turned his skeptical gaze towards the door. "Ahmet." I think it was Ahmet Robinson. My calm eyes suddenly sparkled. "Let him in. Let him come in. Private held the door while calling Ahmet Robinson, who was waiting at the door. Ahmet Robinson entered the door with flushed cheeks and irregular breathing. Come, pass, Ahmet Robinson. My voice sounded inviting and strong. As he came out of breath, he continued his words with widening eyes. I went to the school. There was no one there. There was no one, so I consulted Rajab Effendi. They went to the Western headquarters, he said, so I hurriedly came here. He put his hands on his knees, took a breath for a while, and sat down on one of the empty wooden chairs. You did well, Mr. Ahmet. Your athlete identity has clearly spoken. While the students were laughing in unison, an arrow pierced my heart again. The joyful voices of the young people echoed on the statuary walls of the headquarters. When I turned my face to them, they timidly pulled themselves together. To reassure them, I smiled with my curled lips. These brave scouts are strong enough to go to the front, Rauf Pasha, even though they're young. My heart was beating like it was coming out of my chest. I know Ahmet Robinson, a heroic scout like you raised them. They will go safely and continue their education in Aksahir Sultanasai. Their teachers will be waiting for them at the school. While Namik and Ahmet Robinson were looking at Tariq and his friends with sweet smiles, the children had their heads bowed helplessly. Whatever we say is futile. Tariq crossed his arms in front of him and said, May God bless Ahmet Robinson, Namik Bey, you and all other teachers. Yes, from now on, we are not students. We will rush to the front as Mimitsik, and our place will be filled with new young people. They will be educated comfortably in the Sultan, and they will fall in love comfortably with their loved ones. Let our story not be left unfinished. Let the dreams of an entire army not be left unfinished. Let us write an epic with those half-stories. Fizi spoke while wiping her teary eyes on the chair she was sitting on. I couldn't get enough of my mother. I couldn't get enough of my loved ones. I couldn't get enough of my friends. But I'm going to the front without even looking back so that I won't have a homeland that I can't get enough of in the future. Maybe I will become a hero like you, Rauf Pasha. Maybe I will become a martyr like my commander Fiat and write my name in history. I was patting his shoulders while crying inside. Mr. Namik checked the time on his leather strap watch with a yellowing screen and spoke. You are already heroes. You were even braver than me. May God forgive this nation and its children like you. Come on, guys. We're going to be late. Let's say goodbye and go. At that moment, Ahmet Robinson stared out the window with his calm gaze and did not make eye contact with either Tariq or Fizi. While all the young people said goodbye to me and my friend Enver and walked out the door, Tariq and Fizi remained in the room. Both of them came to the exit door, dragging the leather sandals on their feet. Please forgive me, Commander Rauf. While Tariq's voice sounded sad, Fizi remained silent. Well done, brave men. Both of our eyes were red as we made eye contact with Ahmet Robinson. We felt even worse as we looked at the young people leaving the headquarters outer gate step by step. Tariq, moving his misty eyes among the houses with bay windows on the narrow and gloomy street, said, Goodbye, beautiful Aksahir. I couldn't manage to say goodbye to you. But goodbye, he said. My heart was jumping as the tears that I had been trying to hold back for hours were flowing rapidly. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. As I pressed the keys of the typewriter on my desk, small and black letters filled the white paper. I had come a long way with my novel. I keep my promise to you, Irva. Look, I'm moving away from the revolution and turning my face to art. While I was taking a break from writing, I took my burning cigarette from the ashtray and took strong puffs one after another. At that moment, Saysavar quickly knocked on the door and entered. Pasha. My eyes widened in panic as I said, Sir Saysavar. While swallowing forcefully, he handed me the paper in his hand. You have a telegram from the governor of Konya, Semil Bey, Pasha. While my lips curled curiously, I asked without taking my eyes off the paper. To myself? Or to the headquarters? His eyes, widening under his eyebrows, wandered between the small letters. He personally came to your name, Rauf Pasha. As he placed the paper on my desk, he took small steps backwards. Okay, you can leave, Saysavar. While my hand was quickly opening the paper, Saysavar left the room by closing the door. When I opened the paper, my eyes started to move rapidly between the lines. Dear Rauf, I am writing this letter to you from Konya governorship. Our country is being dragged into a brutal and scrupulous and cold war day by day. While I was trying to stop the war by trying to prevent the lives of our country's children in this war, I saw that you were doing the exact opposite. The organization you call Union in Progress is nothing but nonsense. There is a death sentence against you. Don't continue this stubbornness any longer. No one will understand us but us. Come, let's act in unity. Your organizational speed is very strong. The people of Kanya are falling for your pink lies. The people of Axahir have surrendered to your captivity. I want you to immediately leave the headquarters to the soldiers fighting for the future of our country. Come, let us forgive you and save our homeland from this war by making common and good decisions with the Istanbul government. Because you will be hurt all the time. We are as helpless as you. We are worried about the future of our country alone. As long as you trust us and our army fighting for us. We would like to host you at a nice dinner in Konya, but we do not even want to see the Committee of Union in Progress next to your name again. Simul Kamer, Governor of Konya. While reading the article, my trembling fingers crumpled the straw yellow paper into a ball. As I clenched my teeth, I felt the intense taste of blood on my dry lips. I heard whispers coming from my nose as I breathed rapidly. My voice shook as I shouted, "Fiat." It felt as if Fiat was going to stick his head out from behind this door and say, "Come here, Ralph Pasha." In my momentary emptiness, my heart ached and my eyes misted. As I threw the paper onto the table, I called out to the door again. Say Savar. Say Savar. Along with the squeaky door, the intense smell of cigarette smoke licked my nose. I'm listening, Pasha. Take this telegram, write a reply telegram in accordance with this text, stating that we will not accept this, and send it to the governor of Konya, Simul Bey. Let him learn the spirit of union and progress and Kaveh Milli. While my voice was shaking with anger, Saysavar looked at me with her sparkling eyes. Yes, my Pasha. He left the room, pressing the paper in his hand tightly to his palm. At that moment, I couldn't stay in the chair I was sitting on as my eyes, shining with anger, were turning around as if they were coming out of their heads. I forced myself to sit up and looked outside for a while. It wasn't long before there was a knock on the door, and I took a break from my work, leaning back in the leather chair. You can come in. As Enver stuck his head through the door, the calm expression on his face remained intact. Come, Enver. My Pasha. He kept silent and swallowed. Ali Riza's aide or something has arrived. My brows furrowed as I leaned forward in the chair. My suspicious gaze darted behind the door, and my fingers crossed on the wide table. Who? Is Ali Riza the owner of Hukmu Arade newspaper? While Enver stroked his strong and shiny mustache, home. Yes, Ralph Pasha, he said. Okay, take it in. Let it lay whatever eggs it wants. I took the cigarette out of the tray, brought it to my lips, lit it, and took deep breaths one after the other. Gloomy smoke came out of my mouth and nose and spread throughout the room. Even though my breathing was difficult, I didn't care. The door to my room opened again and a short man entered, straightening the collar of his cream-colored shirt and placing his red fez on his head. Hello, Ralph Effendi. Without taking my shining eyes off, I pointed to the empty chairs in front of me. Hello, sit down. He sat down on the empty chair I showed him, dragging his leather boots on his feet. The spiteful expression on his face made me feel anger towards him. As I took a deep breath from the cigarette between my fingers and put the cigarette back into the ashtray, I looked into his eyes through the rising gray smoke. What is your purpose in coming here? My name is Adnan. I am Ali Riza Bey's aide. I came to talk to you about the telegram you received today. Pursing my lips and clenching my fingers into fists, I thought to myself, flattery. But I intended to keep what I was feeling inside for a while longer. What can you say about this? How much does the telegram I received concern you, and that government sycophant Ali Riza, who will be your boss? Adnan wiped the sweat that accumulated on his forehead with the back of his hand while taking his fez into his hand. Sir, you are losing because of this contrary thought. You go your own way and fall for the words of a few or so unionists. I interrupted him by slamming my hand on the table. Talk to me truthfully. I'm not going to take advice from a fool like you. After taking deep breaths, his chubby face under his bald head turned red, but he was still trying to remain calm. What is written there is of great importance to you. If you approve what Governor Simul Bey says, Ali Riza Bey will drop your death sentences and include you in the army of the Istanbul government. That's why this is your only solution. While Adnan was talking with fearful eyes, I got up from my chair and approached him. As his bright eyes wandered over me, my heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and the sweat poured from my neck made my body drenched. When I punched him halfway between his mouth and nose, he let out a deep moan and fell on the damp-smelling wooden floor. After he fell to the ground, I kicked his broad and chubby back repeatedly with my boot. At that moment, Saysavar grabbed my arm and pulled me away from Adnan. Give my greetings to Ali Riza. It would be good for him to run away too. He shouldn't be seen around here much from now on. Next time he should come personally, not you as an aide-de-camp. It would be nice to have tea with each other. While Adnan was making a tampon for his bleeding nose in the middle of his chubby face, he quickly left my room after picking up his fez that had fallen on the floor. As he was leaving, Enver hit him hard in the back and pushed him out. What happened, Pasha? What does this Italian nonsense say? I sniffed angrily. The governor orders us to comply with Semel Bey's instructions. I wonder if their faces don't turn red when they offer us things they can't even dream of. Our death sentence will be reduced and our ranks will be given back. While my voice was coming out mockingly, Enver's lips under his curled mustache whispered angrily. As my heartbeat accelerated, Saysavar sat me on my chair again and looked into my eyes and said, "Please calm down, Pasha. The Istanbul government is going bankrupt, and these are their last efforts." While loosening the buttons of my broadcloth uniform, I took deep breaths and looked at Saysavar with my misty eyes. That traitor called Ali Riza will not be able to escape. I will hold him accountable for his actions. I hit my fist on the table. While my friends were watching me with shy eyes, I continued my speech in my calm voice. Friends, we will make Kaveh Milli dominant in Konya and Aksahir. Just like in Samsun, just like in Erzurum, just like in Amasya and just like in Shivas, let our revolutionary hearts beat together with our people and for our homeland. God help us and get half. Amen, Pasha. Don't worry, this nation will give the enemy's boots the punishment it deserves. As I put my cap on my desk back on my head, I stood up and walked down the steps quickly. The cold weather had softened a little, but the bitter cold that licked one's face was still showing itself sweetly. While I was smoking with great pleasure the cigarette I took out of my silver case, the sun began to slowly set over the mountains surrounding Aksahir, turning the dawn blood red. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Dear Irva, I'm very curious where you are now and what you are doing. My heart aches deeply when you are not around. Maybe if I knew where you are and was sure of your safety, this pain in my heart would ease a little. Thinking of you and imagining your hair falling on my shoulder while I'm being thrown into a bitter war hurts me more than ever. As I write this letter, I don't even know if it will reach you. It turns out that love is such a special feeling. It is the one that is closest to you even when you are far away from you, with his heart and eyes. I am still reading the novel you gave me, Crime and Punishment, with great pleasure. Even if I am at war, I will keep my promise to you and turn away from the revolution and turn my face to books. In these days when I am very sad and hopeless, I have only one hope, and that is to be able to meet you after sending the enemy from my country, to meet you in the streets of free Aksahir, to look into your eyes. I couldn't say goodbye to you, but I miss you so much, Irva. I can feel my heart and emotions burning so much for the first time. I'm in love with you. I hope you're in love with me too, just like you held my hands in front of the Grand Mosque. Ralph. As I put the pen in my hand to the edge of the letter whose ink was not dry, I took a big sip of my rabbit blood tea while the smoke was next to me. The tears that flowed from my eyes dripped from the side of my nose onto the woven carpet. While I was just looking at the letters scattered on the paper, I took another strong sip of my tea, finished my tea, and left the empty glass aside on the table. While the moon was illuminating the streets of Aksahir, whose snow was melting on the edge of a clear night, gloomy rays of light were filtering through my tulle curtains and reflecting into my house from the bay window. I felt the ground beneath my feet shake like an earthquake. The thin glass on the sills was shaking as a force exerted pressure under my feet. Excitedly, I stood up from the sofa I was sitting on and threw myself in front of the window. No, this is not an earthquake, I whispered through my lips. Because the Italian soldier's jeep was making a night patrol, shaking the sky and the earth. While the thick and patterned tires of the jeep were moving through the snow masses, 2 soldiers were following the jeep, checking the houses with machine guns in their hands. After the jeep passed, I nervously hid behind the curtain to avoid making eye contact with the soldiers. The sweat was flowing down my forehead and onto my neck. While the Italian soldiers were moving towards the end of the street, looking at the windows of the houses with timid eyes, I ran excitedly to the phone on the desk. When I came face to face with myself in the stained oval mirror, I saw that my face was red with excitement. I picked up the dusty handset of the phone and dialed the number of Sasevar's house. But the phone was not ringing, it was making strange noises. Later, when I remembered that the communication lines were cut off, I put the phone receiver back down with misty eyes. I folded the letter lying on the table and carefully placed it among Irva's handkerchief in my drawer. I grabbed my revolver, put it on my waist, clenched my teeth and clenched my hands into fists. The wooden door of my house was stolen by a strong hand. While the red roar of the crackling fire from the fireplace licked my face, I went down the stairs quickly. When I opened the door with excitement, I saw Sasevar standing in front of me, out of breath. After moving my amber eyes on him for a while, I asked, "What happened, Sasevar? What's up?" He swallowed hard, his face red as he breathed with difficulty. Mansion, he said, but could not continue. Sasevar, calm down. What happened to the mansion? He stood up, supporting himself on the wooden banister with his hand. They set fire to the mansion, Ralph Pasha. When they seized the headquarters, they set fire to the mansion where we held our meetings. As his voice came out bitter and desperate, I stared at the open sky with my narrowed eyes. So they burned the mansion. Yes, Pasha, the people were mobilized. Even though they were prevented, the people showed their reaction and extinguished the fire in the mansion together. Even though the news was bad, a bitter smile appeared on my lips. Even this is pleasing. The people are showing their strength and showing their own spirit. What will we do now, Pasha? After taking my cashmere coat from the hanger and putting on my thick black cap that was lying in front of the mirror, I looked at Sasevar with determined eyes. We will burn too. If we get hurt, we will hurt. Where are the other Unionists? While Sasevar's lips curled mischievously, my friends came out from behind the wall where they were hiding, with their calm and angry faces. We are here, Ralph Pasha. Sesme turned his eyes shining in the dark on me while stroking his curly mustache angrily. Then there is no obstacle. Sasevar frowned and looked at me with her blank gaze. Where are we going, Pasha? To burn and destroy, I said as I closed and locked the door. Follow me, guys. We continued to walk with angry steps while our leather, black boots were crunching the snow accumulated under our feet. Enver approached me with quick steps, and while his cigarette-smelling breath was licking my face, he asked, "Where are we really going, Pasha, or to the mansion?" I glanced at my friend, whose heart was burning like embers. We will look at the mansion on our return, and now we will organize a visit to the building of Hukmuarade newspaper. While all my friends were enjoying themselves and stroking the mustaches under their noses, their lips were curled with joy. We walked through the narrow and gloomy streets, dimly lit. When we arrived in front of Hukmuarade newspaper, the pale cream-colored shutters of the building were tightly closed and the curtains were drawn. The dense smoke rising from the chimneys of the houses created a tumultuous fog among the lights of the city. My eyes were drawn to the pale yellow light shining from the lobby of the building. The light is on inside, Pasha, in the lobby. I was distracted by Tullet's voice. Yes, but it may have been lit to deceive. Sesme did not take her eyes off the lobby. A gas lamp is never lit to mislead. This risk is not taken. There must be someone inside. The wind blowing in the secluded place where we were waiting was hitting my skin like a slap. I lifted both collars of my coat and buried my head helplessly in it. I took a deep breath and exhaled the ashen smoke from my mouth before adding, "Come on, guys, let's go." As I approached the building with rapid steps, I saw the young man behind the curtain drawn to the glass in the lobby, absorbed in the book he was holding in his hands. After making eye contact with my entire team, Enver opened the door and we all jumped in, the two of us in front. The young man left a mark on the book in his hand and stood up from his chair, speaking. "We are closed now, come tomorrow." Enver punched the young man hard on his little nose, and while the young man was thrown to the ground with a painful groan, Enver pointed the gun at his waist at the young man. "We are uninvited guests, don't give us any trouble." He continued his words in a misty voice while looking at the blood flowing from his nose. "Who are you? Or those soldiers of the Committee of Union and Progress? Well done, look, you know." I kept my angry gaze on the young man while laughing at his sarcastic face. While putting a bullet into the barrel of the gun, Enver whispered, "Pasha, with your permission, I am killing another Ali Riza supporter." Stop. Stop. I will help you. Please don't kill me. Ali Riza forces me to work for him without my consent. His eyes were filled with tears and his voice was tearful. Stop, Enver. I hit his wrist, and at that moment the gun exploded on the wooden floor. As the smell of gunpowder rose and hit my nose, I bent over the young man's head. How will you help us? While wiping the blood flowing from his nose, he swallowed and continued. Ali Riza. I will tell you everything about Ali Riza. I will do everything in secret, whatever I can. I sat there for a while and started thinking. Taking a deep breath, I added, So, how can I be sure that you are telling the truth? He smiled bitterly as the blood dried on the tip of his nose. I don't like Ali Riza either, as long as you save me from his hands. As I took my cap off my head and handed it towards Enver, I stood up from the wood-sinted floor, supporting myself with my knees. Okay then, you can start by helping us right away. He looked at me with his confused gaze for a while. How? How so? We will burn this building, and you will turn a blind eye to us, just as he turned a blind eye when our mansion was burned. In the silence, only my friend's breathing could be heard. What's your name? I said, without taking my eyes off him. Servet, my Pasha. While Enver was picking up Servet, I caught sight of the newspapers on the large wooden table in the lobby. Sesme, can you turn off that gas lamp? Let's not draw attention to the occupying forces. Sesme quickly turned off the gas lamp, dragging her large body. As the lobby became dimly dark, I took out my Zippo lighter and flashed it. Fortune. Sir Ralph Pasha. I pointed to the stacks of newspapers on the table. Can you put the newspapers over there? My leather boots were pointing right in the middle. Just as I was about to throw the lighter on the newspapers, I remembered the picture that Ali Riza had made for himself in his office. Wait for me here. I'll be right back. I quickly climbed the steps and opened the magnificent door right in front of me and entered. As the smell of cigarette smoke hit my nose painfully, I left the room, removed the wooden frame painting right behind his chair, and returned to my friends. As soon as I relit my Zippo lighter, everyone's eyes were smiling and their lips were curling with joy. Pasha, is this why you went up? The things that really need to burn are here, I said and left the fire on the pile. As the flame grew stronger, we ran out the door. While sooty smoke covered the damp walls, the small newspaper building was now surrendered to the flames. While Servet was watching the building with misty eyes, I touched his shoulder. Don't worry, Ali Riza can't do anything to you. If anything important happens, be sure to let me know. He looked into my eyes while interlocking his fingers. Okay, Pasha. As the flames surrounded the building step by step, my friends and I walked away from the building. Pasha. Sir Sasavar? His voice broke as he breathed. This is Ali Riza. He should not do anything to the child. He can't, I said in my determined voice. As soon as we entered the Arasta Bazaar, a group of Greek soldiers blocked us. As they walked towards them with determined eyes, the soldier in front of them shouted in broken Turkish. Well. Commander Ralph, the murderer of our Commander Nikolaus. While my lips turned into a straight line, I approached him with lazy steps. Loving this country requires heart, blood, nobility, and courage. We do not allow a person with bad blood to step into this country, and when he does, he will pay the price with his life. You cannot understand us. You will not understand us. You do not deserve the hearts of the children of this country. You appeared before us with a simple bolt-action rifle, but we appeared before you with our shroud. That's how it is known. While he was laughing sarcastically, it's heartbreaking. He was knocked to the ground with a punch to his cheek. While his other friends moved, Enver punched a hole in their foreheads with the gun he held in his hand. While the lifeless bodies of Greek soldiers were piled on the snow, we continued to walk through the shops of Arasta Bazaar. My heart stilled as the sound of the night adhan recited from the Aplixi Mosque played in my ears. As I looked at the burnt facade of the mansion, my eyes filled with tears and my heart ached. I hugged Sasavar while she was looking at me with her misty eyes. My lips were shaking and I was sobbing inside. Sasavar, Sesme, Tulit, and Enver's eyes were also filled with tears. The ash pieces of the burnt wooden windows of the mansion were slowly falling to the ground. As I approached the mansion with cautious steps, an intense smell of ash hit my nose. My eyes filled with tears as I grimaced in discomfort. I smiled bitterly as tears wet my lips. The mansion. Unscrupulous people burned the mansion down. Enver spoke with his misty voice, without taking his increasingly dark eyes off the mansion. That's the way they are, Ralph Pasha. They don't dare to come across us. They will burn our mansion." While his voice was shaking, my long and thin fingers were balled into fists. Sasevar said as she grabbed my arm and pulled me towards herself. "Pasha, please do not come any closer. Parts may fall from above." I turned my helpless and tearful eyes to my friends. They were all watching with rapt attention the facade of the mansion that had turned to ashes. Tullet scratched the beard on his face and added in a sultry voice, "I met you here. Any mansion would be too small for your burning heart, Pasha. The love of your homeland is always burning brightly in your hearts. I have always been proud of myself for walking this path with you and bringing your uniform back to you." I patted Tullet on the back. "I have always been proud of being a commander of the Committee of Union and Progress on this path. We are strong together, friends. What makes us strong is not the iron weapons with holes in our hands, but our heart that beats here and believes until the end," I said, my shaky and shy hands reaching over my heart. While black smoke was rising from the burned building from time to time, I turned my misty gaze to the clear sky. While the moon was shining with all its power, the stars were twinkling. The sweet scents coming from the linden trees in the gardens of the bay-windowed houses surrounding the narrow and gloomy streets of Axahir were occasionally blown into my nose by the breeze. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. While my long fingers were running between the dusty keys of the typewriter, I was taking a big sip of my coffee and occasionally glancing at what I had written. As I got up from my swivel chair and walked towards the door, I felt my waist stiffen and my eyes hurt. "You are getting older day by day, Ralph. Your revolutionary heart is now abandoning you," I whispered to myself. I slowly opened the door to my room, straightening my messy hair in the metal mirror above the walnut fountain. At that time, we came face to face with Enver. "Goodbye, Enver?" While she was biting her lip, her squinted eyes were going back and forth on the paper in her hand. Her lip curled into a smile involuntarily. "Semel." "What happened to Semel?" "Konya Governor Semel Kashmir escaped to Istanbul with Italian soldiers, my Pasha." I smiled slyly as my eyes sparkled. "Are you really saying that, Enver?" "Yes, Pasha, there is no surprise. The coward Semel did what was right for him." As I was returning to my room, I signaled Enver to follow me. "Did you send the telegram informing Mustafa Kemal about the situation?" His amber eyes narrowed with excitement as he stroked his curly mustache. "We have withdrawn, Pasha. We are waiting for news." As I parted my hair in half with my hands and placed my wire-framed glasses on my nose, I said in my strong voice, "Good. Very nice," I said. While I was enjoying myself, I was watching the snow-melting streets from the window. I turned his eyes to the sky with great joy and said, "You will all escape soon. You will not be able to stand the truth and the Turkish nation any longer." "Sir Pasha, did you say something?" While I was talking angrily to myself, Enver was looking at me with curious eyes. No, I didn't tell you, Enver." As I turned my face to the window, I looked at the bright sun rising with all its power through the snowy mountains. I was filled with great peace. I didn't even send the letter I wrote to Erver, because I had no idea where she was. As I desperately set up my chair again, I pulled a cigarette from my table and raised it to my lips. After inhaling a lot of smoke into my lungs from the cigarette I lit with my Zippo lighter, I blew it out in distress. As soon as Enver left the room and closed the door, my lips curled into a deep smile of victory. I continued to smoke the cigarette between my fingers with great pleasure. The sweet coolness of the evening filled my room through the window whose sill I removed. While the scent of the linden trees mixed with the scent of the geraniums, I could hear the sound of melting snow. The bitter cold in the air had broken and the air had softened a little. I was sticking my head out the window and inhaling the pleasant smell that washed the streets of Axahir. While the flickering kerosene lamp was burning on the wall of my room, the pale redness was reflected out of the glass. I was startled like a little child by a knock on my room door. As I turned my head back to my chestnut-scented room, I slowly closed the wooden windowsill. I sat at my desk, rubbing my hands. "Come." The door opened quickly. Sasevar's worried face was just looking at me. "Ralph Pasha, sir. Servet has arrived." While trying to remember wealth, Sasevar corrected. "From Hukmu Arada newspaper, what they have to say is important." "Okay, let him come. Let him come." My eyes became thoughtful as I stroked my curly mustache. Servet took off his red fez with a polite hand gesture out of respect and entered the room with shy eyes. "Can I come in, Pasha?" Come, come, sit down, Servet. He sat down in his chair, shaking off the dust grains on his black jacket. What is so important that you are going to tell me? He swallowed and scratched his face. He got angry when he saw the building burn down yesterday. His voice trembled. He immediately gathered us in his own house, and when things did not go as planned and the governor of Konya, Semil Bey, fled to Istanbul with the Italian forces. He felt cornered, because he was a little bit lonely in Aksahir. After remaining silent, Servet looked at his feet and interlocked his fingers. What he said gave me great pleasure. Did he say anything about us? His eyes widened with concern. He said, I will root out those Committee of Union and Progress terrorists who did this from the country. Believe me, even I laughed at this, Rauf Pasha. Ali Riza, just like his friend Semil Bey, Servet is over. I took deep breaths. Is this what you were going to say? This is not it, Pasha. Let me explain the most important point. I'm listening to you, I said, crossing my arms on the table. Ali Riza is also planning to escape, Pasha. I couldn't swallow. My eyes felt like they were going to pop out. I listened to their doors. They made a plan. They are leaving Aksahir tomorrow night. I even called Semil Bey, come to Istanbul immediately before appointing a new governor to Konya. And from there we will go to England together, said Ali Riza, my Pasha. As my eyes narrowed in anger, I continued. Wow, Ali Riza, wow. I breathed heavily through my nose. Are you sure you'll run away tomorrow? He moistened his lips as he squeezed the red fez between his fingers. I'm sure, Pasha. I'm absolutely sure. I will help you tomorrow. You will have a great opportunity to catch him. As I stood up from the chair I was sitting on, I looked into Servet's misty eyes. We need this very much, Servet, because the scum called Ali Riza needs to die now. Pasha, I will take you home secretly after midnight tomorrow, and we will do what is necessary. He spoke without taking his determined eyes off me. I trust you, Servet. I believe in your sincerity. At that moment, his suspicious eyes were watching out of the window. His shaky and bony fingers were moving with all their strength on the red fez under his palm. Rauf Pasha, is it okay if I go? If anyone sees me here, I swear they won't let me live. I continued talking while patting his shoulder. Of course you can go. See you tomorrow night. Don't worry, you will be free from now on. I hope so, Rauf Pasha, I hope so, he said very sincerely and left the room quickly with his red fez on his head. When he left the headquarters, I watched him go through the window that gave out honey-colored light. His fearful eyes were constantly looking around him, and his doubts were evident in every step he took. I gathered all my friends in my room and explained the situation to them. Ali Riza was going to run away. Servet told him about it here. Before he leaves tomorrow, we will act first and prevent him from hurting more. Who is with me? Enver smiled bitterly as he took a strong breath through his nose. He sat up, pushing the chair under him. Then all my friends stood up, pushing the wooden-legged chairs under them. Leather boots made squeaking sounds on the rotting wooden floor. We are with you, Rauf Pasha. Fute's blood will not be left behind. Enver repeated in a sickly voice. Third day evening. Hello, Erva. As the snow was melting drop by drop, the green beauties of Aksahir were revealing themselves, and the scent of the tart linden trees was everywhere. As the sun bid farewell to the day behind the snowy hills surrounding Aksahir, the dawn turned purple. I'm waiting for you, with the embroidered handkerchief you left me in one hand and my tear-stained letter that I never delivered to you in the other. I look forward to the day when I can touch your hair and look into your eyes. I am writing to you my helpless feelings between four walls, with a pen in my hand that is about to run out. It turns out how difficult love is, how difficult it is to fall in love. Love is harder than being a revolutionary, being a commander, being a soldier with a big heart. I don't know whether it is the fact that it is impossible or the fact that it's heartburns that makes it beautiful, but all I know is one truth. That's because I still love you. I loved you with your warm heart in the war that started on a cold winter day. I loved the way you walked towards me as a silhouette in the darkness. I used to believe that I would change the world with a revolution. I believed that I would change the world as a brave and sick commander until I touched the art-filled library in your heart. You were good for my soul. It was as if you completed my unfinished soul. Erva, love made me believe that my soul was incomplete and that you completed it. Rauf. I looked up from the article I was writing at the sound of Grandma Paloma's voice. Here you go, Grandma Paloma. What's wrong with you, my child? You write in anger. I called out to you. but you didn't hear. I turned my sorrowful gaze away from Grandma Paloma. To Ova. I am writing a letter to Irva. Of course she will send me a few words. My misty eyes shifted to the half-empty paper in front of me again. I made soup. Can you eat it hot? My lips curled involuntarily. No. No, I can't eat it, Grandma Paloma. I don't have much of an appetite. Thank you. As her cotton-like white hair fell over her shoulders, she watched me with pitiful eyes and caressed my thick, wavy black hair with her trembling fingers. Don't be like this, my child. You are skin and bones with grief. I remained silent. I did not respond to your sultry voice. I continued writing to you at full speed. I felt relieved with every sentence I wrote to you. It felt very good to tell you my troubles. Spring is coming to Axa here, do you know? The branches of the trees turned green and cherries started to bloom. You are missing a little bit of everything, more than ever. As the evening ended on the third day, the moon took its place in the sky again. The narrow and gloomy streets were shouting for freedom despite everything. While I was trying to finish my novel behind this small window, the gloomy and peaceful rays of moonlight were falling on my typewriter, curtain by curtain. Look, the evening adhan is also being recited. While the sound heard from a Plixie mosque nourished my ears, the smell of roasted tahini halva and arasta bazar sometimes reached my nose when I went out the window. Nothing has taste, nothing has joy. I just lost myself, walking around like a soulless body. It turns out that love is so difficult. It is scarier and more cruel than a war. What I have to say is neither far nor near. I am writing to you from the middle of my love.